Good day and welcome to our analysis of the food sector. Members are myself, Randy Bedu, Amy Bissessa, Alana Bernard, Chanel Bonnet, and Karima Antoine.
The board of directors of the well-known restaurant conglomerate Caribbean Big Bad Gorillas was advised to expand their business into CARICOM country, Trinidad and Tobago, via the franchising entry method. Not being too familiar with the food services sector of TNT, a sector analysis was requested as they want to ensure that they choose the most viable sector. For this sector analysis report, we will be examining the food services sector in the CSME member of state Trinidad and Tobago. A brief insight on its history and performance throughout the years, as well as the positive and negative effects of globalization, the CSME, the local government, and other factors to the sector. This sector analysis will determine if the board of directors should agree to expanding their business operations to this country food service sector, keeping in mind the negative factors that can affect it.
Thank you, Chanel. Good day, everyone. On behalf of Alana, I will take you through history. Trinidad and Tobago is an island nation located at the most southern point of the chain of the Caribbean islands and is blessed with a rich history of its land, people, culture, food, religion, and many more. Now we'll take a brief look at the history of this isle's food sector, its beginning, its advancement, and its future. In 1968, Trinidad and Tobago saw the birth of its first fully locally owned fast food restaurant in the nation's capital, Royal Castle, and now this entity has over 300 employees. They can also boast of having franchise outlets in Guyana. The food sector in Trinidad and Tobago has a strong economy. This has been bolstered by an increasing middle-class population, which could be a result of more women entering the workforce. Also, large investments in the sector have led to rapid growth in the number of variety of food products. In recent years, the number of food service outlets have shown growth of 9%. For the past 2 years, COVID-19 significantly impacted the expansion of this sector, but now the opening of the world's market through what seems to be the decreased risk of COVID-19 has increased one's appreciation for exotic specialties and local gourmet lifestyle that craves local foods has grown in more affluent communities. We believe that the local food sector offers significant investment opportunities as it continues to register a relatively high level of expansion. This is potentially due to the resumption of the local nightlife. Partygoers will also be in need of refreshment and individuals are less inclined to cook at home. As for the future prospects of the domestic sector, it is expected to continue on its progressive path as the local economy continues to expand. Thank you, Chanel.
The food sector can be considered an oligopoly. Some of its major players are KFC, Subway, and of course we have Royal Castle. And these are the major players in the franchising sector in Trinidad and Tobago, to name a few. And with that being said, of course we have the largest player, which is KFC. The types of products or services you have would be the service restaurants that caters for all your fine dining needs, cafes for your coffees and teas, bars for your mixed drinks, and your fast food chains for your typical fried chicken and sandwiches, and of course we have catering businesses as well. The food sector in Trinidad and Tobago is considered one of the largest players in the country's labor force, and according to the Central Statistical Office, the first quarter of January to March of 2020 had a total of 618,200 persons employed in that sector. The sector, however, isn't a earner of foreign exchange, but the country, however, do gain foreign exchange through investment, tourism, exporting, and of course the energy sector.
Everyone, and thank you, Alana. I will now take you through point number 3, global financial and economic crisis. In light of the recent COVID-19 pandemic, we are in a unique position to not just theoretically discuss the potential impact of a global and economic crisis, but we are able to draw upon what has happened and what is continuing to unfold around us. The food sector has been impacted in several ways by this pandemic. Pre-pandemic, Trinidad and Tobago had a thriving food sector. There were new businesses popping up all over the nation. For example, in the past, KFC Independence Square branch was marked as one of the most profitable KFC branches in the world, which is a testament to the level of demand placed on the local food sector. At the height of the pandemic, all restaurants nationwide were closed for several weeks, and when they were permitted to reopen, numerous restrictions were put in place to prevent and reduce the spread of COVID. Out of these new restrictions, innovation grew as most businesses realized that offering the option to order online is the path for survival. Growing hand in hand with this new trend in the sector was an increased need for delivery services, and a byproduct of this was the creation of a new company that focused on partnering with food sector firms that could not afford to hire full-time delivery drivers. Unfortunately, there were casualties of this economic crisis. The global supply chains were interrupted, creating shortages in products resulting in inflation. There were households that were not able to afford purchasing meals from the food sector, and the reduced opening hours due to curfew led to a decrease in revenue for firms. In more extreme cases, some businesses permanently closed their doors as they were not able to afford to pay rent. Personally, I had a conversation with one of the owners of a popular restaurant on the day that they ceased operations. The owner lamented that they had to shut down operations as seating capacity was reduced to 50% and they were not permitted to sell alcohol, and alcohol accounted for roughly 50% of their revenue. Overall, on a good day, they would have made 25% of pre-pandemic sales, and this business could not be sustained as there was no significant reduction in rent. Everyone,
I do believe that increasing globalization can play a positive role in both destroying and developing the food sector within this country in certain aspects. So, a way in which it can destroy the sector is through competition. This is because globalization leads to increased competition among economies, and with Trinidad being lesser developed, it can face a disadvantage when trying to compete against already developed countries. An example of this can be seen when the country's cereal producers suffered immensely because it could not compete against Kellogg's and other cereal brands in the past. However, this country is dependent on food imports, therefore, the government implemented protectionist policies such as taxes and tariffs to assist in safeguarding the local firms against foreign competition. Due to the country's long history with importing and exporting food items, increased globalization can aid in boosting the economic growth, cross-border investment, and new market accessibility. The firm would be using franchising as its entry method, And this method makes it easier to achieve success as the consumers will be willing to invest into an already established firm. Therefore, increasing globalization in this country will be much easier and more beneficial because it increases the firm's chances of putting up a good fight against competition. A prime example can be seen when the owners of Prestige Holdings Limited introduced the new KFC in Trinidad and Tobago. Because this was an already established business, the demand for the products were extremely high. And as a result of the business's remarkable performance, the owners were able to expand. Till this day, this food establishment is well known and their products continue to be in high demand. Seeing that globalization helps organizations to locate cost-effective methods to produce their goods and boost global competition, if it were to be increased, the franchise will benefit because it will be able to cut back on costs and it will have an upper hand as the franchise will already be known to many.
The benefits of the government being a prime mover would be that the country would now be able to be operated smoothly because the sector would now act as another way to sustain the economy and allow it to keep growing. There will also be more job opportunities, and the government would now act as the negotiator when it comes to foreign companies entering into the market. The drawbacks of the government being a prime mover would now be when the government of Trinidad and Tobago have a hands-on role in the development of a firm. There are a lot of unwanted drawbacks, and we can see from past experiences where the government had a hands-on role, not in this sector per se, but in other sectors, and over time those businesses had to eventually stop its operation. For example, Petrotrin, this firm had terrible mismanagement. They accumulated high debt and of course public scandals, so the firm never had the chance to grow and develop, and it didn't have the chance to strive over time. Given the nature of the business, the government of Trinidad and Tobago should play the role of a facilitator instead of a prime mover and having that hands-on role in the firm's development. So moving away from what has just been said, because we would be entering Trinidad and Tobago's market via franchising, this means the government should take the back seat and let the business grow and flourish on its own. Most times what we see with establishments that are in the food sector is the business has already made a name for themselves. They already have a brand, the finances, and they already have a mass following. So there is no need for the government to have a hands-on rule. A perfect example of this would be Starbucks. When it first came to Trinidad, there were lines to purchase their drinks, and as of today, it has grown to over 16 outlets throughout Trinidad and Tobago.
Good day, Dr. Bahal. My name is Shunal Bonnet, and I will be presenting for you today the impact the full implementation of the CSME can have to the food services sector of Trinidad and Tobago. So I'll start off by doing a quick recap on what is the goal of the CSME. So basically, their goal is to allow the free movement of labor, goods, services, capital, and the right to establish amongst the other members of the CSME. So how could the free movement of all these factors affect the food services sector of Trinidad and Tobago? Well, it can definitely positively affect it when it is you're looking at in terms of the movement of goods. It can increase the variety of products that is available to the sector. The sector can benefit from cheaper goods due to no import duties. They can get a higher standard quality of products. This will be due to all the different members, they competing against each other. They want to see who could offer the highest standard quality of whichever product they produce. And in terms of for the consumers within the sector, they can definitely benefit because they would get an enhanced finished product. They can benefit from 5-star restaurants, 5-star dining. So when you're looking at labor, how can the movement of the labor positively affect the food service sector? Well, it can definitely increase the pool of skilled workers that is available to the sector when they want to do recruitment. The quality of the food and service definitely increases because when you have skilled workers, their output is of high quality, high standards. When it is you look at the labor again, it could definitely increase profitability and increase stronger growth amongst the firms within the sector. So let's now look at the negative effects this full implementation can cause. So when you're talking about the right to establish, this can cause a higher number of firms within the sector, and this higher number of firms will cause higher competition levels. The firms can be less profitable, and this can then cause some of the firms to close down. When it is you're looking at the free movement of labor, it can negatively affect it in terms of the job availability. Less jobs will become available within the sector.
Hello again, everyone. I will now take you through the conclusion. The history of Trinidad and Tobago has shown us that its food sector had a 2-year slump due to the pandemic, but now it is on the path of thriving again. In general, we have noted that our biggest competition in this sector will be Prestige Holdings Limited. In the event of a global financial and economic crisis, our team must be able to be forward-thinking and quickly adapt to whatever the new normal will be, or ultimately face closure. Globalization will be a factor as it can bring growth and access to new markets, but if the market is too saturated, we need to be wary of the competition. Ultimately, we would prefer that the government play the role of facilitator as it is more beneficial to us than if it was to be a prime mover in this sector. Lastly, CSME can offer us cheaper goods and greater access to skilled labor. On the other hand, we could face stiff competition who can consume the available labor pool. Hello again, everyone. I will now take you through the next. I will take you through our recommendations. We would definitely recommend to the board of directors that the company should invest in the food sector of Trinidad and Tobago. This nation has a history of embracing new foods and new experiences. In our opinion, the pandemic has reduced the initial number of competitors, and now that the iron is hot, we should capitalize on the vacuum created by their absence before our existing competitors, such as Prestige Holdings Limited, expand their market share or a new entity fills that void. Our initial market entry strategy of using franchising will minimize our financial risk exposure, as the majority of the risk will be with the franchisee. In the event of a global and economic crisis, we should ensure that our franchisees are knowledgeable enough to have contingency plans in place, and we should have a team available to help guide them. Our team should do a detailed analysis of our main competitor to ensure that we are prepared to go head to head with them. Through globalization, we can leverage our access to international markets to get the best value for money for our franchisees. If the government acts as a facilitator, we can further benefit if the state enacts new legislation that is intended to encourage foreign investment in the food sector. But if the state acts as a prime mover in this sector, we should analyze the potential impact. Finally, we should encourage our franchisees to capitalize on the benefits of CSME and simultaneously keep an eye on the competition. Next, I will take you